Gene Hackman's filmography stands as a testament to acting excellence and versatility. Throughout the times, he established a real connection with audiences through a string of complex yet relatable characters that resonate with a wide range of viewers, and some of them even became part of pop culture's lexicon. Hackman's path to stardom wasn't straightforward, though. He first served in the Marines, then, he tried acting and studying at Pasadena Playhouse. There, he and Dustin Hoffman were both voted least likely to succeed. Quite a prediction. Hackman wasn't discouraged, though. He moved to New York City in the late 1950s and took any job he could find while still studying acting. He also performed in summer stock and off-Broadway plays, honing his craft. Finally, in the late 1960s, he got his big break through the Oscar-nominated role of Buck Barrow in Bonnie and Clyde. After that, his career took off. He earned another Oscar nomination for I Never Sang for My Father in 1970, and the following year, he delivered the Oscar-winning performance as Detective Popeye Doyle in The French Connection. That cemented his place as a Hollywood A-lister. Gene Hackman became famous for playing morally complex characters. He often portrayed flawed individuals, sometimes in positions of authority. These characters were frequently grappling with inner turmoil or facing immense pressure in their roles. A key trait shared by Hackman's characters was their everyman quality. He brought a naturalistic acting style to his roles that made even the most larger-than-life figures feel relatable and grounded. Hackman was initially hesitant about this common man label, but he eventually came to see its accuracy as it reflected his ability to embody both strength and vulnerability, making him one of Hollywood's most versatile and respected actors. Having starred in over 70 films, there were bound to be some titles that aren't often mentioned when covering Gene Hackman's prolific career. They tend to be less well-known, underappreciated by both critics and fans, and often overshadowed by more prominent titles. So, to give them the attention they deserve, here are my top 5 underrated Hackman movies, listed in chronological order. But before we get to that, here are some honorable mentions. 1975's Night Moves, where Hackman plays private detective Harry Mosby, who gets hired onto what seems to be a standard missing person case as a former Hollywood actress enlists Mosby to look for her missing daughter. 1995's The Quick and the Dead. Sam Raimi's surrealist western featured the iconic actor as John Harrod, the ruthless outlaw who now controls the frontier town of Redemption and is hosting a fast draw shooting tournament. And 2001's Heist, David Mamet's crime thriller where Hackman plays Joe Moore, a professional thief ringmaster who's forced to disappear after a botched robbery, but whose plans are crashed by a forced invitation to take part in one last heist. And one title to avoid, I'll skip the obvious choice.
Nuclear power, nuclear strategist, nuclear bomb, nuclear warhead, nuclear.
And bring to your attention Stanley Kramer's 1977 effort, The Domino Principle. Dull, clunky, and unremarkable, not even Gene Hackman's greatness could salvage this one. Trust me, one to skip. And now to the ranking. At number 1, we have Prime Cut. In this gritty crime thriller, Nick Devlin, played by Lee Marvin, a no-nonsense mob enforcer from Chicago, is sent to Kansas City to settle a debt with Mary Ann, played by Gene Hackman, a sadistic and eccentric local crime boss who runs a slaughterhouse. Mary Ann's operation entails more than just meatpacking. He's involved in human trafficking and other disturbing practices. When Nick discovers the extent of Mary Ann's depravity, including his exploitation of young women, he decides to take action beyond just collecting the mob's money. Prime Cut, even with its quality and star power, isn't as famous as other crime movies from the 1970s. Critics were divided. Some liked the acting and the way it was directed, but others found the movie's tone inconsistent. This probably made it harder for people to recommend it to their friends. The title itself might have been a problem. It hints at a straightforward crime story, but in reality the movie mixes crime with dark humor, and this might have confused some viewers. They weren't sure what to expect. Add to that the fact that the subject matter is pretty dark, as it tackles human trafficking and exploitation. I guess in 1972 this probably was too much for a lot of people. The violence and unusual style also limited its appeal. It was a title made for more serious film buffs rather than general audiences. So, whilst it has its fans, it never really became a big cultural phenomenon. Still, there are plenty of reasons you should watch this title. Prime Cut's real strength lies in how it mixes genres. It's a crime thriller, but it also has dark humor and social commentary. This makes it different from other mob movies of the time. The movie balances its tough subject matter with some sly jokes, which keeps things interesting. But it's not all fun. At its core, Prime Cut deals with exploitation and dehumanization. This comes through in how the movie shows sex slavery and mob corruption. Then, of course, there's Gene Hackman. He's brilliant as the villain, Marianne. Yep, that's the character's name. Hackman gives a chilling performance. He's sadistic, unpredictable, cruel, bold, and effective. One of Hackman's best performances, and one that shows how versatile he is as an actor. He's almost over the top, yet believable acting here feels like a warm-up for his Lex Luthor role in Superman the movie 6 years later. Hackman's Marianne is simply the perfect bad guy for a movie about exploitation. The movie is also well-directed and overall greatly executed. Michael Ritchie does a great job helming the project. He creates a tight story that mixes suspense with character development. The visuals are striking too. The contrast between peaceful rural scenes and the brutal slaughterhouse is memorable. And then there's the combine harvester chase in the sunflower field. That's one thrilling and iconic scene. Finally, Prime Cut really pushed the limits of what filmmakers could show back then. It skirts the edge of being an exploitation title, but it's a cut above most of the movies from this genre. The violence is definitely present, and it has a very nihilistic feel, but it's not just gratuitous. It's used in a more intelligent way than you usually saw in other exploitation titles. And one of the most striking things is that there are no clear heroes. Lee Marvin's Nick Devlin is a long way from being a good guy. He's portrayed as a world-weary and almost decadent figure. There's a sense of ennui that hangs over him. This all works towards a movie that deliberately dismantles those traditional, idealized concepts of Americana by not being afraid to show its darker side. In a nutshell, this lesser-known crime film is a great and enjoyable watch. Clocking in at 88 minutes, it's a relatively low-time investment, but one that's justified by both the movie's quality and star-studded cast, which includes Sissy Spacek's film debut. Next on the list is 1975's sequel, French Connection 2. The sequel picks up shortly after the events of the first film. Doyle, played by Gene Hackman, still obsessed with capturing Charnier, travels to Marseille, France, where he believes the drug lord has resurfaced. Despite the language barrier and unfamiliar territory, Doyle is determined to bring Charnier to justice. However, the detective's single-minded pursuit leads him into a perilous world of drug addiction. During an undercover operation gone wrong, he is kidnapped and forcibly addicted to heroin by Charnier's henchmen. The mission takes a harrowing turn as Doyle, now struggling with withdrawal symptoms and grappling with his own demons, becomes a pawn in the gangster's dangerous game. French Connection 2 garnered decent reviews and performed respectively at the box office. However, it didn't reach the critical acclaim or commercial success of the original 1971 film. This somewhat lukewarm reception can be attributed, in part, to the inevitable comparisons to William Friedkin's award-winning masterpiece. The sequel simply couldn't replicate the groundbreaking impact of its predecessor. It felt more conventional and less innovative in its storytelling approach. The 4-year gap between the two films also didn't help, as audiences' interest in Popeye Doyle's pursuit of Charnier had waned during that time. Despite the criticisms, here's why this title is still worthy of your time. French Connection 2 stands as a prime example of what a truly effective sequel should be. Director John Frankenheimer crafted a film that functions powerfully as both a follow-up and a standalone narrative. Crucially, the setting shifts from the familiar streets of New York to the gritty port city of Marseille. This change of location isn't just cosmetic, it creates a fresh narrative canvas. Whilst French Connection 2 feels distinct and offers a unique experience, it maintains important thematic and character ties to the original film, and it certainly doesn't skimp on the action. The sequel delivers fresh and equally impressive action sequences that rival those of its predecessor. The change of setting is a welcome and essential addition. Plus, the sequel features stunning cinematography. that vividly captures the raw and gritty realism of the city, immersing the viewer in its unique atmosphere. Gene Hackman's performance is another major reason to see French Connection 2. He completely embodies Doyle's descent into addiction and obsession. His acting is raw and compelling. The actor's portrayal of Doyle's heroin addiction and withdrawal is intense and unforgettable. It's so good that it's easy to see why he was nominated for both a Golden Globe and a BAFTA. The sequel also allows for more character development. The title is not as fast-paced as the original. It's more of a slow burn. We see Doyle taken out of his comfort zone in New York. He's in Marseille now, a place where his usual tactics don't work, and the language barrier makes him feel like an outsider. But he is still determined, as he's on a mission to catch the heroin czar, and nothing will stop him. The movie's themes are another of the title's highlights. Obsession and redemption are two key elements in the movie's narrative. Frankenheimer's direction and Hackman's acting, combined with the new story, really delve into this topic of obsession. Doyle's relentless pursuit of Charnier pushes him to his limits, both physically and emotionally. As I mentioned, the movie also looks at redemption. We see Doyle trying to regain his strength after being broken down. Additionally, the title boasts a complex, morally ambiguous tone. It makes viewers think about their own ideas of right and wrong and makes them consider the human cost of the drug trade. Finally, there's the third act. French Connection 2 builds to an intense and satisfying ending. It pays tribute to the original film, but also stands on its own. The final chase is gripping and shows just how determined Doyle is. The first two acts, with their focus on character, make the ending even better. Because we've seen deeper into Doyle's and Charnier's minds, the conclusion has more impact. It also builds on what happened in the first movie and makes the payoff even stronger. Despite being overshadowed by its predecessor, French Connection 2 is an intelligent and gripping thriller in its own right. It offers a fresh perspective on the lead character while staying true to the gritty spirit of the original. It also shows studios how a successful sequel is made. We now enter the 1980s as we move to the third pick on the list, 1983's Under Fire. This gripping political thriller is set during the final days of the Nicaraguan Revolution in 1979, as the corrupt Somoza regime faces collapse. The story follows three American journalists: Russell Price, played by Nick Nolte, a seasoned photojournalist; Claire Strider, played by Joanna Cassidy, a passionate radio correspondent; and Alex Grazier, played by Gene Hackman, a TV reporter transitioning to a safer anchorman role. Whilst covering the revolution, the trio becomes entangled in both personal and political conflicts. Under Fire received mixed to positive reviews from critics, but it unfortunately failed to find a wide audience. The film struggled commercially, partially due to the fierce competition it faced at the box office. However, its marketing also played a significant role in its underperformance. The distribution, Orion, seemed unsure how to market the film. They opted to promote it as a romantic thriller, downplaying its more complex political themes. This marketing strategy likely backfired as it misrepresented the film's core content. The niche subject matter focused on the Nicaraguan Revolution and offering a critique of the US-backed regime did little to generate mass appeal. Audiences weren't necessarily drawn to this political charged narrative. Consequently, Under Fire ended up being overshadowed by other films dealing with similar geopolitical issues such as The Killing Fields and Salvador, which resonated more strongly with viewers at the time. Still, if you're wondering why this movie is worth watching, here are 4 reasons that will help you make up your mind. Under Fire offers a visceral and insightful look at the Nicaraguan Revolution, plunging viewers into the heart of the conflict and vividly portraying the struggles and sacrifices of those fighting for change. The film explores the complexities of political upheaval in Central America, delving into the underlying forces that fuel revolutions, social inequalities, political corruption, and foreign intervention, forcing viewers to confront the human cost of such dramatic societal shifts. Amidst this turmoil, Under Fire celebrates the courage and conviction of individuals who dare to stand up for their beliefs, whether it's journalists risking their lives to expose the truth or revolutionaries fighting for a better future, highlighting the power of individual conscience in the face of immense danger. The title works on multiple technical fronts. Director Roger Spottiswoode, who began his career as an editor on Sam Peckinpah's films, brings a keen sense of pacing and visual storytelling to Under Fire. He creates a well-balanced film that effectively conveys the complexities of the situation. Filmed on location in Mexico as a stand-in for Nicaragua, the movie achieves a gritty realism courtesy of John Alcott's stunning cinematography, which captures both the beauty and danger of the war-torn country. Adding to the film's visual power is Jerry Goldsmith's Academy Award-nominated score, which perfectly complements the mood and heightens the emotional impact of the story. The acting is simply outstanding. Whilst Gene Hackman delivers a Golden Globe-nominated performance as Alex Grazer, the film also boasts a remarkable ensemble cast, with several actors nearly stealing the spotlight from the iconic thespian. Nick Nolte is particularly compelling as Russell Price, a photojournalist wrestling with the ethical dilemmas of his profession. Nolte's performance is nuanced and emotionally resonant, capturing the internal conflict of a man torn between objective detachment and personal involvement in the unfolding violence. His portrayal evokes comparisons to Sam Waterston's powerful take as Sidney Shamberg in The Killing Fields, released the following year. Joanna Cassidy also delivers a standout performance as Claire Strider, a fellow journalist navigating the complexities of both romantic entanglements and the very real dangers of reporting from a war zone. And a special mention must be made of Ed Harris, who, in one of his earlier roles, embodies the amoral American mercenary. Harris's character serves as a chilling reminder of the dark side of foreign intervention, highlighting the potential for exploitation and corruption in such conflicts. The film also excels as a journalistic exposé. Under Fire powerfully grapples with the responsibilities of journalists in conflict zones, raising complex questions about objectivity, intervention, and the power of images to shape public opinion. The film delves into ethical dilemmas surrounding journalistic integrity, most notably through Russell's controversial decision to stage a photograph for the greater good. This act forces viewers to confront the blurry lines between objective reporting and advocacy, and prompts reflection on whether the ends justify the means. This exploration of journalistic ethics remains remarkably relevant in today's media landscape, where the proliferation of information and the speed at which it spreads amplify these very same concerns. Suspenseful and thought-provoking, Under Fire will leave you pondering its themes long after the credits roll. A gem that delves into the shady actions similar to Operation Condor. If you're looking for a film that explores deeper themes while still keeping you on the edge of your seat, this is definitely one to add to your watch list. And with that, let's move on to the next underrated Hackman film, the remake of a classic, 1987's No Way Out. The stout political thriller follows Navy Lieutenant Tom Farrell, played by Kevin Costner, who begins working at the Pentagon under Secretary of Defense David Bryce, played by Gene Hackman. Farrell becomes romantically involved with Susan Appel, played by Sean Young, and aware that she is also Bryce's mistress. When Susan is found dead under mysterious circumstances, Bryce attempts to cover up his involvement by fabricating a story about a Soviet mole infiltrating the Pentagon. Farrell is tasked with leading the investigation into this supposed mole while secretly trying to clear his name, as suspicion begins to point toward him. Released during a time when terms like glasnost and perestroika were widely ingrained in the popular lexicon, No Way Out only achieved modest box office success, earning $35.5 million domestically against a $15 million budget. A key factor in this underperformance was Orion Pictures' marketing strategy, once again, which, much like their approach to Under Fire, focused on the film's romantic subplot rather than its more compelling political thriller elements. This misdirected marketing, combined with fierce competition from other films with broader appeal, contributed to No Way Out slipping through the cracks and failing to reach a wider audience. Ignoring these circumstances lies another great Gene Hackman vehicle with plenty of reasons to justify a watch. Here are four. The film's leads are fantastic, delivering captivating performances that elevate No Way Out beyond a typical thriller. Kevin Costner, fresh off his success with The Untouchables, also released in 1987, solidifies his A-list status with a strong performance as Commander Tom Farrell. As a man caught in a web of political intrigue and personal danger, Costner is both charismatic and vulnerable, making him a compelling protagonist. Gene Hackman is equally brilliant as Secretary of Defense David Bryce. He embodies the film's themes of power and corruption with his charismatic intensity and nuance, creating a truly memorable and chilling antagonist. No Way Out is also a masterclass in suspense, keeping viewers on the edge of their seats with its constant twists, turns, and pervasive sense of danger. The intricate plot unfolds gradually, skillfully revealing secrets and betrayals at every turn, ensuring that the tension never lets up. Beyond its thrilling narrative, the film's exploration of themes like abuse of power, cover-ups, and the dark side of politics resonates powerfully even today. This makes the title not just a gripping thriller, but also a thought-provoking commentary on the enduring nature of authority and its potential for corruption. Building up on the two previous points, we find a third reason to watch this title. The film is a perfect example of the 1980s thriller genre at its best. It combines elements of suspense, romance, and political intrigue into a tightly paced and engaging narrative. It's a movie that's both entertaining and thought-provoking, and it showcases the talent of its director and cast. And it's a great example of the kind of sophisticated thrillers that were popular during that era. It's a nostalgic trip for those who remember the 80s and a great introduction to the genre for those who don't. Finally, No Way Out boasts a truly iconic twist ending. Without giving anything away, the film's climax features a revelation that completely recontextualizes everything you've seen up to that point. It's a twist that's both clever and surprising, and it's guaranteed to leave you speechless. The twist isn't just a gimmick. It actually enhances the story and adds a layer of depth to the characters and their motivations. It's a twist that's still talked about today, and it's a major reason why No Way Out remains a memorable thriller. Despite being overshadowed by comparable titles from the era, No Way Out remains an intelligent, suspenseful film that deserves more recognition for its storytelling and performances. It's a must-watch for fans of political dramas, neo-noir films, or Kevin Costner's early career. I wrap up this list with the fifth entry, the 1995 action blockbuster Crimson Tide. Set aboard a U.S. nuclear submarine during a period of escalating global tensions, this military thriller pits two strong-willed men against each other in a life-or-death conflict. Captain Frank Ramsey, played by Gene Hackman, a seasoned and old-school commander, leads the submarine's mission but clashes with his new executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Ron Hunter, played by Denzel Washington, who represents a more analytical and modern approach to leadership. When conflicting orders regarding the launch of nuclear missiles are received during a communications blackout, their disagreement spirals into a tense power struggle that divides the crew and threatens catastrophic consequences. Now, Crimson Tide is an unusual entry in this list. It wasn't just a commercial success, it also earned critical acclaim, ranking among the top 20 highest-grossing movies in the US in 1995. The film was also praised for its tight, compelling script, with an uncredited contribution by none other than Quentin Tarantino. Also, many consider Crimson Tide to be one of Tony Scott's best directorial efforts. Still, despite its initial success, the title seems to have faded from public memory somewhat. One reason is its intense focus on ethical conflicts and the intricacies of military protocol. The film prioritizes dialogue and the exploration of moral dilemmas over large-scale explosions or elaborate set pieces. Consequently, Crimson Tide has been somewhat forgotten and overshadowed by other films from that era, lacking the enduring popularity of comparable titles like The Hunt for Red October. This underrated gem is begging to be found, and to motivate you to watch it, here are several compelling reasons. First, it's remarkably realistic and effective. Whilst it doesn't rely heavily on action sequences, the film masterfully captures the psychological tension and claustrophobia of underwater conflict. The sense of pressure and the weight of responsibility are palpable. Furthermore, the film's exploration of clash between strict military protocol and individual judgment remains highly relevant today. It raises important questions about authority, ethics, and the burden of command. Crimson Tide delves into these themes of leadership, duty, and the agonizing ethical dilemmas faced under extreme pressure, which elevates it far beyond typical action fare. And of course, the acting is superb. Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington deliver electrifying performances as two strong-willed leaders who find themselves on opposite sides of a life-or-death decision aboard a nuclear submarine. Hackman embodies the seasoned veteran, exuding gravitas and experience, whilst Washington portrays the ambitious up-and-comer grappling with doubt and conviction. Their on-screen chemistry is undeniable, creating a compelling rivalry that fuels the narrative. Adding to the film's strength is a supporting cast that includes Viggo Mortensen and a pre-Sopranos fame, James Gandolfini, both of whom deliver memorable performances that enrich the ensemble dynamic. Beyond the acting, the movie boasts perfect execution across the board. Tony Scott's dynamic visual style, including his use of bold, fast-paced editing and dramatic framing, reflects a polished aesthetic. Hans Zimmer's powerful score underscores the tension and drama, a signature feature of 90s blockbusters that relied heavily on memorable music to amplify emotional impact. Finally, the film has an iconic script. Lines like "We're here to preserve democracy, not to practice it," resonate beyond the film, embodying the sharp writing that elevate many action movies of this era from simple spectacle to memorable storytelling. As a result, Crimson Tide perfectly showcases the template of successful 1990s action entry. Like other iconic titles released during that decade, it strikes a balance between adrenaline-pumping moments and cerebral tension, making it both thrilling and thought-provoking, a hallmark of why this decade remains beloved by action fans. It's a high-concept movie akin to other titles like Face Off. In summary, Crimson Tide exemplifies what made 1990s action movies so compelling: star-powered performances, moral complexity, stylish direction, and high-stakes storytelling, all whilst maintaining a balance between spectacle and substance. And with that, I wrap up this exploration of Gene Hackman's most underrated and underseen films. These movies might not always get the spotlight, but they each showcase the acting range and star power of one of Hollywood's most beloved icons.